will typically see really kind of often quite exhausted bookkeepers in this transition to business phase who are looking after their own clients, then reviewing the work from their team to make sure it's up to scratch, doing all the stuff you need to do to manage the business, still trying to do the marketing to get new clients, still doing the sales, and actually making less money than they were in terms of what they get because they're paying their team. This is the most challenging phase of the journey often, because it feels like, well, wait, why am I even doing this? And this was easier when I was on my own.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a fantastic one. Our guest needs no introduction. He's been on several times, and this is part of a series of episodes where we're going deep into E-Myth Bookkeeper and doing a deep review of each chapter. His name is Peter Cook. Welcome back to the podcast, Peter.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. And I'm looking forward to this episode because we're going to dig into chapter 6, which is the bookkeeping business journey. Now, for you listeners that are just joining us now, in the show notes, you will see the series listed out where you can jump back. I recommend, well, you could listen to this one and then jump backwards. I don't think you'll, no spoiler alerts there, I'm sure. But this is E-Myth Bookkeeper. And if you don't have the book, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/emyth, and we have a wonderful opportunity for you to get access to this book and all sorts of other valuable business building resources. So we recommend you do that, and we've got a real great special offer for listeners as well if you go there. Peter, we're talking about the bookkeeping business journey. Tell us about this chapter.
So I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners and bookkeepers in particular set out growing their bookkeeping business, but without actually knowing what the journey looks like and what the different stages of that journey looks like. And I was thinking of this. I just did a walk in New Zealand with my wife and with my mum. We did the Milford Track, which is a 4-day walk. One of the most beautiful walks in the world. There's just absolutely stunning rainforest. It's through the fjords, like it ends up in one of the New Zealand fjords. It's a stunning part of the world. And I did it with my mum, who's 78. But I was thinking about this kind of in relation to this chapter is we knew exactly where we were starting and we knew where we were finishing. So this was a guided walk for 4 days, but we kind of knew where we were going. We knew exactly where the journey was. And it would have been a very different journey if we had just got dropped off, like it starts on a boat, like you get dropped off at the start. Like if we just got dropped off on a boat in the New Zealand wilderness and they had said, good luck, head that direction, and we were just then now wandering off in the New Zealand wilderness with no idea of where to go or where we were trying to get to, it would have been a very, very different experience. But I think a lot of people do that with their bookkeeping business, is they start and they want to get some clients and they want to make some money, but they actually really have no idea what the journey looks like and where they're trying to get to. And it makes it a lot, obviously it's a very different experience if you don't know where you're trying to get to. And this chapter talks about what that journey looks like.
You know, it's when you were speaking, I'm thinking many people have the same issue with their life.
Yeah.
And when we think about businesses, and I hear this often, is the business is, it's almost like those two start out disconnected instead
Mm.
of doing both and then making sure that the business journey actually gets you to where you want to go for your life as well. I'm sure you've worked with a lot of people who have built businesses that actually did not serve the person's life.
Yeah, I mean, that's when we're getting very
Oh,
profound
yes.
pretty early.
Did we
with,
get off topic again? That's
no,
what we
but
do
that's
here.
absolutely like this is when I'm mentoring businesses. That I actually start with what do you want in your life, and I kind of circle back into what do you want for your business. So I'll actually say, what do you want in your relationships? What do you want in well-being? What do you want money? And then what's the business that you want? Because a lot of people say, well, I want the business to be big, to make lots of money. But if you don't also have the context of, well, I want to have this kind of relationship with my family. I want to have this kind of time with my family. I want to have my life look like this. It's very easy. And you see a lot of people go, okay, well, I'll put 60, 70, 80 hours a week into my business. And maybe the business works, but it can be at the expense of everything else.
Mm.
And so it's really, yeah, absolutely. I agree that it's good to look at what you want in your whole life. And it's also good to look at what's enough. Like what's the right size of a business. There are some people, and we can kind of get caught up when we look at the models of what's a successful business, that it has to be kind of ridiculous. It has to be internet startup, private jet, amazing business. When for a lot of people, if you go, well, actually, if you got this business to a $500,000 turnover or $1 million turnover, for most people, if you actually look at their whole life, that would be fabulous and enough. So that's another kind of key question: is what is the right size of business that you want to grow?
So true, so true. And so that's a key piece. And I will say that the part of the resources that are available with the E-Myth, we actually have a program that helps guide our listener through actually figuring some of those things out. Because before you get to, okay, you're going to go on this bookkeeping business journey, you're actually already on it. Do some of this work to figure it out. And so you will increase your likelihood of success if you simply have that roadmap, even if it's just sketched out. You know, your analogy of the Milford track, you know, it's not like you knew every single destination, every single piece of that journey, but you had some real key pieces, and you could go halfway through the track and say, oh, maybe we want to add on a little extra track over here, right? So, but you're on the right track. So, really exciting stuff, I think, for our listener, because this is tapping into some of the you know, people pay tens of thousands of dollars to work with business coaches to help them figure this stuff out, and right here on this episode, you know, you're helping us unpack some of this.
Yeah, and worth just you're talking about the bundle of stuff that we've got with the book for this offer, that I think it's worth just pausing for a second, because there's we've really put a lot of amazing stuff in there in terms of the resources and the programs, and we wanted to just our intent with that was just to have ridiculous value, that if you buy the book you get, I think it's over $1,000 worth of resources and programs and videos and stuff to help or do all the stuff that we're talking about there. So just where do you go for that again?
thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/emyth. And we have an offer there. They can click through, get access to a program, get the book. And it's, fantastic offer. And really that's the whole point, is helping bookkeepers build a business that they love. And if you do the little bit of work up front, it leads to a really big outcome down the track.
Yep. Yeah. And our mission at Pure Bookkeeping is help great bookkeepers grow their businesses, or transform the bookkeeping industry by helping great bookkeepers grow their businesses. And so thank you for this opportunity to help do that. And this bundle and this resource is aimed to do that, is aiming to help great bookkeepers grow their businesses.
Beautiful. And it's our pleasure, and we're grateful to be able to do it.
Yeah, so should we dive into a little bit what the actual bookkeeping business journey looks like?
Yes, let's do it.
So in the book, we talk about these 4 stages of a bookkeeping business, and it's really useful to know what stage you're in, because each stage has different rules and it's a different part of the journey, and how you should behave in each part is different. It's actually the track that we did, the Milford track, was a little bit like that. The first, that was over, it's a 4-day walk, and the first day was this nice gentle walk through the valley beside this gentle stream. But then the second day, which is the hard day, is over the pass, and so you climb up pretty high, and you then have to descend, and so there's a different. The whole feel is different, and the guides are like, all right, well, we actually got to start earlier this day because we've got some more challenging terrain to get through, and we're going to treat it differently than day one. And so I think it's useful to look at these 4 stages that we talk about, and we think of them in terms of how profitable a business is and how much leverage there is. And the first 2 stages, which is the startup and successful practice, are where it's just you. You're the only person in the business, and we call that a practice, when it's just you doing everything. And so everybody starts at the startup phase, obviously, and at that point you haven't got any clients, you haven't got any staff, you haven't got any leverage. You're trying to get your first few clients. You don't have any systems in your business. Kind of everything is new. And what we want to do in this stage is kind of really build confidence quickly. There's a tendency at this stage, like, I've never done this before, I don't know, I just kind of need any clients, I need any work, I don't need to charge enough money. And so there's one of the things we see in the startup phase is a lack of confidence in the business, and starting and probably charging not enough. And what we want to do at this stage is very quickly build enough confidence to charge properly, and to kind of start out the way we want to finish, and set up the business from the beginning how we want it to continue. And then the next stage is successful practice. And this is now when you're still on your own, but you're full. So your books are full, your weeks are full. Ideally, at this point, your revenue's around 100,000 in your business, making reasonable money, but generally working pretty hard to do it. And because it's just you, there's not a lot of flexibility. So it's hard to take a holiday because everything relies on you. And this is, we talked about exiting a business. This is not a particularly valuable business to exit because it's all reliant on you. And actually, Debbie, this is where Debbie was when I started working with her. So when she engaged me originally as her business coach, it was because she was full. She wanted to take on more clients, but didn't have any room herself. Still had people coming to her. She wanted to help them. Realised she needed to hire other bookkeepers, but didn't know how to do that, and didn't know how she could trust other bookkeepers with her clients. So she was at that second stage, which is the successful practice. And then the third stage, and this is kind of the interesting one, is the transition into business. So this is where it goes from just you to having a team of bookkeepers. And when you hire your first couple of bookkeepers, and you're in this transition, and it's a very different game and a very different stage of the journey when you're now recruiting and managing a team compared to just being on your own. And what we come across often is bookkeepers in this transition to business phase of the journey where they might have 2 or 3 bookkeepers working for them. Their revenue is higher than when they're on their own because they have more clients, but they're actually making less money and they're working harder. So we'll typically see really kind of often quite exhausted bookkeepers in this transition to business phase who are looking after their own clients, then reviewing the work from their team to make sure it's up to scratch, doing all the stuff you need to do to manage the business, still trying to do the marketing to get new clients, still doing the sales, and actually making less money than they were in terms of what they get because they're paying their team. This is the most challenging phase of the journey often because it feels like, well, wait, why am I even doing this? And this was easier when I was on my own. I imagine in your community too, you've come across this phenomenon.
It is, absolutely. It's I hear about it all the time. And the analogy of, this is going over the mountain pass. And many don't make it, unfortunately. And they turn back. And they turn back. And it's costly. It's costly to turn back. It's costly to have errors up on those mountain passes. You get into a storm, not good.
Yeah.
And we hear it all the time. And the cost is tragic when you look at the energy. Someone's, you're paying people, you're training them, you're paying to train them often. You've put all this time and energy into finding somebody and then all the work to go through getting them up to speed. And then it fails. Now it's also the aftermath of that, the impact to clients, the redoing of work. I mean, I've heard some big numbers, $15,000, $30,000, $50,000 impact to the business. Yeah, that's the challenging part. And it's also one that we hear people bouncing back and forth. It's like, we tried to make the pass, nope, didn't work. Tried to make the pass, nope, didn't work. And can do that for years.
Yeah. Yeah. When Debbie was going through this, there was a period of probably 3 or 4 years where she was making less money than she could have on her own when we were in this transition. And this is because we were still developing the systems for the business at that time. So we didn't have good enough systems for the bookkeepers to follow. So it still needed supervision. We hadn't worked out the model for how to supervise other bookkeepers and whether we needed to pay supervision for the bookkeepers. And we still hadn't got the recruiting system right. So there was this kind of painful period for, like I said, 3 or 4 years where Debbie was making less money as a business than she was on her own. And we kept saying, well, we're pretty sure that there's a promised land on the other side of this, that we can kind of see where we're trying to get to, but it was more difficult than we anticipated. And one of the things that with Pure Bookkeeping and the systems that we've created there that we're trying to do for bookkeepers is help shorten that phase. So make it easier in terms of like make the dip less and make it shorter so we get through to the next phase more quickly. And the next phase is successful business. And this is where a successful business is where you have a team that's working generally without you, making more revenue, making more profit. So as the owner of a successful business is now making more money than they could on their own, but working less hours. And so this is really the kind of the promised land for a business owner. It's also a business that's worth a lot more because you can sell it It doesn't depend on you. And the key to getting through this transition to business phase is having good systems, so that you have good systems for how you recruit bookkeepers, good systems for how you train them to do the bookkeeping how you want them to, good systems for how they should actually do the bookkeeping, so a process for them to follow, and good systems in place for doing the quality review so that their work can get checked, but it doesn't mean the business owner's going into the file and checking every transaction or every reconciliation. There's a couple of key things built into your system for the quality review. And then if you have those systems in place, you can get quite quickly and relatively painlessly through this this phase of the journey and get there much quicker than Debbie did, than we did back in the day when we were kind of working it all out as we went.
Yeah, fantastic. And really that bring it back to the analogy. Someone's already done it, having all of the pieces figured out so you can implement it rather than try and discover the path yourself and figure it out from being dropped off in the wilderness. And proven, right? The other piece is a lot of people have walked the Milford track and successfully done it time and time again. The guides, that's another key piece. We talk about the community, both the Successful Bookkeeper community and also the community at Pure Bookkeeping. These are people who have done the mountain pass.
Yeah.
Many of them have failed along the way and then figured it out using the tools and techniques at Pure Bookkeeping. But it's also, I think, to jump back to those other stages, we talked about a lot of the challenges at the transition to business. But also, I think we should maybe speak about the challenge of going into that next phase when you haven't successfully completed some of the key pieces of a startup and a successful practice. If you don't get those things right, it's almost sure failure going into that. It's like the worst thing you could do would be hire somebody if you haven't had these things figured out. Let's maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, anything that's painful in your business when it's just you, if you haven't got that sorted out, that's going to get much more painful when you grow. So there are things that you really need. So if you haven't got your pricing right, if you're not charging appropriately and then you grow, you're just going to grow a world of pain for yourself. And this is something that we see a bit of if there's just not enough margin in your business model and you grow it, you're actually growing yourself a world of pain. If you haven't got a good sales process in place and marketing, I think we might be talking about this next episode. If you don't have a way of getting new clients into the business and you put bookkeepers on, this is going to be painful because you're saying to somebody, come and join the team and we'll get enough work for you to do. And then you're relying on your marketing to bring in enough customers to fill up the team. But if you're anticipating that's going to happen in 6 months, but it takes 2 years, that's also going to be painful. And I think the other bit is the identity piece that we talked about in the last couple of episodes, that you want to be really clear that you're the business owner, that what you're doing is running a bookkeeping business, not doing the bookkeeping. Because when you're transitioning to a business, now that's really clearly your most important role, and you're getting other people in to do the bookkeeping and you're focusing on growing the business.
So true. So true. With Debbie, when she went through this and she got through the transition to business and started to actually be able to have staff, have that operate, and she really created a new sense of freedom from the business. I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, so when we actually got through to that point where it was working. So we got to a successful business. Debbie had all the systems in place. She had 12 bookkeepers working in the business. She replaced her. She had achieved her original vision, which was replacing her husband Neil's income so that Neil could retire, and had this office. And there's a couple of things that were really cool about that. One was it actually freed her up to she was only needed a day a week in the business, so she could dedicate her time to pure bookkeeping, and that's why we're here, is because her business got to that point where she could then focus on building the systems in pure bookkeeping to give to other bookkeepers. But the thing I really love is the perception of her kids. So she'd gone so Debbie's got three amazing kids, all adult kids now. She's got grandkids now as well. But the kids were this is when the kids were kind of teenagers, and they'd seen their mum who had kind of stopped working when she'd had kids and then started her own business, but they'd seen it was like her business that was just in the spare room in their house. And then suddenly they see their mum running this whole business, big office, 12 staff, putting aside money for them, for their deposits, for their homes, kind of the respect that she had kind of in that whole world, and then beyond with pure bookkeeping. That's seeing her kids go, oh, wow, but perhaps mum's not exactly who we thought she was. And their perception of who their mum was and the example that she had set for her kids, and then what she's able to kind of help her kids with. That was one of the really cool parts of that bit of the journey for Debbie, and being at that successful bookkeeper stage, that successful business stage. I love it. The other cool thing that started happening then was, because in Australia our winter is obviously where your summer is. So June, July, August is our winter. And Debbie and Neil started having 6-week holidays every winter to North America and Europe to get away from our winter and spend a bit more time in summer. And that's a time of year that's also in Australia, the end of the financial year is June 30. So it's a really busy time generally for bookkeepers. And so for her to be able to leave the business at the busiest time of the year for a bookkeeping business, knowing that it was all under control, and kind of starting to have these amazing experiences that she'd always wanted, kind of ticking off all these bucket list things with her husband, because the business allowed that, was pretty special too.
Remarkable. To quote Michael Gerber, Peter, I would say to hold Debbie accountable for all those years and see her through and work with her to those points, to those miraculous outcomes for Debbie, which would have been miraculous for her going back to the very beginning. There's no way she would have dreamed that was possible to create those things. And from Michael Gerber's mouth, that's my kind of coach. One of the best in the world. So this is fantastic. I love the story. Listener, get a copy of the E-Myth Bookkeeper. Start doing this work yourself. Figure out what you want for your life. Figure out what you want your successful business to look like. And we got all sorts of resources to help you do it and avoid getting caught and lost on the mountain pass. So, Peter, I want to thank you for joining us yet again for this chapter. We'll be digging into the next chapter, which is going to be chapter, let's see here. I have it, got a little bookmark here. Chapter 18, Growing Your Bookkeeping Business. That is the next chapter we're going to be diving into. I know many listeners will be waiting for that. So thank you, Peter. And again, listener, you can get the book at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/emyth. Go there, check that out, and we'll join you on the next episode. Thank you again, Peter.
My pleasure.
And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.